We put so much trust in technology. We tend to think of code as, well, pure, totally objective. But what if that's not the whole story? What if there's something else, kind of like a ghost in the code, a hidden bias that's making huge decisions about our lives right under our noses? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unmask it.
And this quote, yeah, it really hits on a core belief so many of us have. I mean, we hand over these massive decisions about who gets a loan, who gets a job, even who gets healthcare to AI systems. And why? Because we figure they're free from all the messy human prejudices. It's just math, right? How can math be biased? Well, as you're about to see, it's not quite that simple.
All right, so let's start right there. Let's pull back the curtain on this whole idea. We're going to dive into what I'm calling the illusion of neutrality and figure out why our blind trust in code, well, it might need a serious reality check.
Because here's the thing, what you see on the surface, all that clean, logical, beautiful code, that's just the tip of the iceberg. What's really hiding deep beneath the surface is this massive unseen problem. A foundation of bias that has honestly some pretty profound consequences for every single one of us.
So, the big question is, how does this even happen? How does bias sneak into something that's supposed to be neutral? Well, it really comes down to this key idea I call the mirror effect. If you want to understand how our own human biases get baked into AI, this is it. And it all boils down to one simple, powerful rule. Bias in, bias out.
Okay, to really get this mirror idea, you have to know what it's reflecting. And that thing is called training data. See, an AI isn't just born smart, it has to learn. It gets trained on these absolutely enormous collections of information. Think every book, every article, every website, all of our historical records. We're basically telling it to learn from the entire digital footprint of humanity.
And this is a really, really important point. We have to ditch the sci-fi movie idea that AI thinks or has intentions. It doesn't. At its core, an AI is a pattern matching machine. That's it. It has no concept of fairness or justice or right and wrong. It just finds patterns in the data it's given. It's a mimic, a very, very powerful mimic.
So you see where this is going, right? If the history we feed it, all that training data, is stained with decades of our own systemic biases, unfair hiring, unequal healthcare, discriminatory housing, the AI doesn't fix any of that. It just looks at it all, sees a pattern, and basically concludes, okay, this is how the world is supposed to work. And then it automates that bias at a scale we can barely comprehend.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theoretical problem for a bunch of tech nerds to debate. No way. This flawed code has a real, tangible human cost. So let's talk about what this actually looks like for real people in the real world. Just take a look at a couple of these real-world examples. In hiring, an AI was built to find the best candidates, but it learned from decades of company data where most execs were men. The result? It started penalizing resumes that had words like women's, as in captain of the women's chess club. Or get this, in healthcare, an algorithm was supposed to predict who needed care the most, but it used how much a person spent on healthcare in the past as a key indicator. But because of systemic inequalities, healthier white patients had historically spent more than sicker black patients, so the AI ended up prioritizing the wrong people. It's literally bias written into code.
Okay, so I know what you're probably thinking. Why don't the developers just, tell the AI to ignore things like race or gender? And the thing is, they do. But the AI is clever. It finds a workaround. And that brings us to something called the proxy problem. This is where we have to look inside the infamous black box of AI.
I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How can an algorithm discriminate based on something like race if it's never even told about race? You take the sensitive data out, so the problem should be solved, right? Well, the answer is both really clever and, frankly, incredibly troubling.
It does it by using something called a proxy. The AI hunts through all the data and finds something that seems totally neutral, totally harmless on the surface, something like your zip code or your credit score. But this piece of data is so closely connected to, say, race, that it works as a perfect stand-in. The proxy becomes a substitute that allows the AI to discriminate without ever using the forbidden word. Let me just walk you through how this plays out. So, step 1. A developer tells the AI, do not use race to decide who gets a loan. Simple enough. Step 2.
The AI sifts through millions of records and discovers a super strong pattern. People from a particular zip code are less likely to pay back loans. Step 3. Now, because of decades of housing segregation, that zip code is a very effective proxy for race. So the AI starts using the zip code as a stand-in. And step 4, the result is still racial discrimination. It just took a different path to get there.
And this is what's so incredibly dangerous. Think about it. If a person denies you a loan, you can argue with them, you can appeal, you can ask for a reason. But when the computer says no, who do you argue with? It just becomes this final, unchallengeable verdict coming from a black box that nobody's allowed to look inside.
Okay, so the problem is clear, it's complex, and honestly, it's a little bit scary, but it is not hopeless. And that brings us to what might be the most important part of this whole discussion. What on earth do we do about it? How do we find a path forward and actually build a just AI?
Well, the very first step is to just admit the scale of what we're facing. This isn't just some technical glitch you can fix with a quick software update. No, this is an ethical crisis, and it's going to require a fundamental shift in how we think about, build, and use these incredibly powerful systems.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, a few things are absolutely critical. First, we need rigorous auditing, constantly testing these systems to see if they're producing biased results. Second, we have to build better, more diverse data sets. We need to feed the AI a more complete and fair picture of the world. Third, we have to demand algorithmic transparency. We need to be able to open that black box and understand why a decision was made. And finally, this one's tough, we need the courage to just pull the plug on a system that's proven to be unfair, even if it's making someone a lot of money.
And let's be crystal clear about the end goal here. This isn't about making machines nice or programming a friendly personality into a chatbot. That's not it at all. This is about making them fair. It's about weaving the very principles of justice and equity into the core logic of how they operate.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. There is absolutely no doubt that the AI of the future is going to be incredibly smart. It's going to be powerful, and it's going to be woven into everything we do. That train has left the station. But its moral compass, well, that's entirely on us. We know for a fact it'll be smart. The real question we have to ask ourselves is, will we make it just?